Okay, so now let's talk about using arrays to manipulate numerical data. So I'm going to clear out the lesson 9 program, and you can keep yours if you want and start a new one for the numerical data. It's up to you. So instead of using user input this time, I'm just going to declare, I'm going to use some random numbers to put into our array. So I'm going to declare a new array of integers, and I'm going to call it numbers, and it's a new integer array, and it's going to be 10 numbers long. So I'll declare the size to 10, and then I'm going to create a for loop just like we did in the last one. We're going to start at 0, and we're going to go all the way up to the length of the numbers array. Let's go with I++. And so we're going to start at 0, go all the way up to the length of numbers. So this is actually iterating through the index of the array, and then each time the loop runs, the numbers, so the value at the current number, at the current index of numbers, we're going to set equal to a random number. So it's going to do a new one each time, and we're going to cast it into an int because I'm going to use math.random. Since I'm only generating one random number, or I'm only writing one line of code that generates a random number, there's no real reason to import the random method. It's a little bit overkill for what you're doing. You only want to use that if you're doing, 10 plus random numbers. It makes it worth the typing. So I'm going to do between 1 and 100 is going to be my random number. So that's a big range, but it doesn't make a difference, and it's kind of more fun to look at, which you'll see when we get it all printed out. So here's what I'm doing. I'm starting at index 0. I'm going all the way to the last index in the array numbers that I created here, and I'm going up by 1. So I'm starting at the first index, which is 0 in numbers. I'm setting that into a random number, and then I'm going to loop around again, which is going to add 1 to I, so then I'm going to index 1. So the second index in number is index 1, and I'm going to set that to a new random number. And it's going to keep going over and over again and get set to a new random number each time until we reach the length of numbers, and then the loop is going to exit. So what that's going to do essentially is it's going to fill my entire array with 10 different random numbers. So now I want to see what that array looks like to double check and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. And again here I'm going to use the enhanced for loop. So I'm going to say int, and I'll just call this num in numbers. So for each integer value in numbers, I'm going to print it out. So let's go ahead and run that. And you can see I generated 10 random numbers here, which 2 of them ended up being 5s, which is really weird. But you can see all of these are between 1 and 100. But let's say I wanted to do more than just print out the array. Maybe I wanted to take all the values in the array and add them together. Well, I could do that too. I could say public. I could create a new method. Let's just do that. Let's give this an integer return, and we'll call it sums. Let's call it sum of array. And as an input, I'm going to take an integer array. So this is the cool part, is we can actually pass an integer array as a parameter in methods. And let's just call that n. Okay, and inside here what I'm going to do is I'm going to first declare a variable for the sum. So I'm going to start that off as 0, and then I'm going to create another an enhanced for loop. So I will say int num in n, which is my new integer array. So for each integer item in n, I'm going to take that item and I'm going to add that to my sum. So I'm going to take each one of these int nums that are in n and I'm going to add it to my sum here. Then I just return the sum and I could print that out here. Let's see, let's go with sum array, and as an input I will use the numbers array. And so if I run this now, you can see that I have the 44 at the bottom, which is my sum, but that doesn't look very nice. So what I'd probably do here is I'd probably print another line previously, and then I can say here I can just add some text. The sum of the numbers above is, and let's pull this out a little bit so we can see what it's doing. There we go. So we can do this, and then I'm going to put that guy there, and then I'll add my plus sign, and we should be good to go. So if I run that again, we have these randomly generated numbers, and the sum of the numbers above is 671, and you can check that with the calculator if you want to, but I believe that's pretty close to right. And that is how you use an integer array to manipulate numerical data.